So this is how they're going to screw Bernie for sure, because they're just saying it right out in the open. And they make it sound like it's normal. Watch this.
And we've started to hear this more and more, and we'll probably have a better sense, obviously, Tuesday, after the 1,300 delegates that are up for grabs there are spoken for. But this idea that perhaps Bernie Sanders is moving the goalposts a bit when it comes to delegates and what could go down at the convention in Milwaukee. What say you to that?
Well, I will say that Bernie is moving the goalposts. This is what people need to remember. The Democratic Party has a party. The party decides its nominee. The public doesn't really decide the nominee. The public is...
Surprise.
The public, just so you know, the public does not decide.
Vote for President of the United States, but people who are active in the party, who participate in the party, they decide the nominee. Superdelegates are very influential in the party. Also, delegates are very influential. And just because you're a pledged delegate for Bernie Sanders or a pledged delegate for Joe Biden doesn't mean when you get to the convention floor that you'll stay a delegate for Biden or Sanders. That's a process. And so it is a process to pick the candidate who wants to be the standard bearer for the party to try to win in November. And so Bernie got to understand that process. And it's a...
Bernie got to understand that process. You know, the one that cheated him in 2016? I hope he understands that process. Boy, is the Democratic Party the most ironically named institution in the history? He's just saying it. No, it's just the people you don't get to choose. We're going to choose. And then when the election happens, we're going to say you got to vote for the guy we appointed or you're a bad person. That's their whole strategy.
Who gets to choose? The people that are active in the party. How does one become active in the party? How big of a check can you write?
So I love this. What this guy says. He says DNC primary during the primary. Your vote doesn't matter. Get lost, plebe. DNC during the general. Get out and vote for our appointee. Please help us. We're begging you. Oh my God, you want Trump to win? This is their. You're damn right. They'd rather have Trump than Bernie. And I love that I said this. I don't know, right when it happened, when they switched this rule. And I go, hey, you know they're going to do this. They're going to push it to a second ballot, and then they're going to say, hey, Bernie signed off on it. And that's exactly what they're doing. Now I have such warm feelings towards Tulsi, just because of that. But then she turns out to be such a kick-ass person on top of it. It makes it real easy. Like, for instance, what is she doing right now when the rest of the intelligence community and the establishment news are pushing another Russia hoax to undermine Bernie Sanders' campaign?
We call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody.
A pretty significant development, a formal briefing now by the U.S. intelligence community to Senator Sanders that the Russians are trying to help him.
Waiting for sometime this year in the election season to brief the campaigns about what exactly they're seeing. And it appears, according to the Washington Post, that they've now approached the Bernie Sanders campaign to let him know that the Russian government is behind some efforts to try to assist his campaign. Now, we don't know exactly what those efforts entail.
So the Washington Post has a source that leaked this information about the intelligence briefing to the Bernie Sanders campaign. The briefing happened a month ago, but the story breaks the Saturday of the Nevada caucuses.
So how do you think it came out now if you had the briefing a month ago?
Well, I'll let you guess about one day before the Nevada caucus. Why do you think it came out? No. Was the Washington Post? Good friends.
And the source for the Washington Post story knows the briefing occurred, but there are no facts mentioned. We don't know, do the intelligence agencies have intercepted emails or text messages or planted Russian news stories or online memes helping Bernie? No, there's no facts that can be verified.
Now, we don't know exactly what those efforts entail.
Call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made.
If this information that the Russians are trying to help Bernie Sanders get elected in 2020 is a big enough story to be a Washington Post headline and to be covered on CNN, you would think someone would have told the president. President Trump tweeted out this morning, the Kremlin is backing Bernie Sanders' bid to the White House? Why didn't someone tell me this? If this story was a serious story and a threat to the integrity of our election, someone would have briefed the president.
In doing that, look at what she did. Tulsi Gabbard, presidential candidates must stop condemn election interference by U.S. intelligence agencies. That's what they got to do. That's who's messing with our elections.
I love her.
What balls does that take? God
Yes.
bless her. She's in the military and she's saying it anyway, and it's true. That's what's great about it. So here's just, she wrote an article and it got released at The Hill and a couple other places released it. And I'll give you just a little bit of it. Every paragraph was rich and full of great ideas. I'll just share 3 with you right now. She says, a news article published last week in the Washington Post, which set off yet another manufactured media firestorm, alleges that the goal of Russia is to trick people into criticizing establishment Democrats. We are told the aim of Russia is to sow division, but the aim of corporate media and self-serving politicians pushing this narrative is clearly to sow division of their own by generating baseless suspicion against the Sanders campaign. Boy, yeah, a little... And I don't know how you feel about Tulsi Gabbard, but that's pretty much... That's kind of exactly what Elizabeth Warren has been saying, too, about Bernie, right? And then she says, this is a laughably obvious ploy to stifle legitimate criticism and cast aspersion on Americans who are rightly skeptical of the powerful forces exerting control over the primary election process. Yes. And she's the only one who's got the balls to say that. God bless Tulsi. So when you see this from the guy from the New York Times, what to expect when you are expecting Putin to show up for your presidential election on both sides. It's easy to distract people from being a domestic... Can you believe this? Like, if The Onion put this out, you would be like, that's pretty good work, Onion. Good work.
In late February of 2020, I learned about a propaganda technique called the wrap-up smear.
Called the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press.
February 21st, 2020, the Star Tribune ran the headline, Russia helping Trump again. It appears the wrap-up smear is starting to unravel. The New York Times posted this correction. The correction says, though intelligence officials have disputed that the officer who delivered the main briefing said Russia was actively aiding the president's re-election.
For what Russia plans to do in terms of interfering in the upcoming U.S. elections. Jeremy, we need to put a fine point on this because it is complex, it is nuanced. We know that the top intelligence official for election security, her name is Shelby Pearson, she told lawmakers just over a week ago in a briefing on Capitol Hill that the Russians have a preference for the president in the 2020 race.
No, CNN, you're wrong. The headlines were not that the Russians had a preference for Donald Trump. The headlines and the reporting for 2 days was that the Russians were helping Donald Trump again and were involved in ongoing election interference.
Now, your sources are telling you that it's not as simple as that. Why?
Look, none of this is really cut and dry, Alex, and it is complicated and it is nuanced. What we are hearing from 3 national security officials is that Pearson may have overstated the extent of the U.S. intelligence as it relates to Russian interference. She said that Russia was interfering in the 2020 election with the goal of trying to help President Trump's re-election campaign. But the U.S. doesn't yet have the evidence to actually conclude that Russia is interfering in the election.
Wait, the headline said ongoing election interference by Russia.
Because of the fact that they view Trump as a leader they can work with, because they have a preference for President Trump. Now, one official said that Pearson's characterization of the intelligence was misleading. Another official said that it lacked nuance.